Welcome to the Big Life Podcast. We are your host. I'm Neal Oates Jr. This is Mr. Robin Lewis. And we are all about improvement, living a big life personally, professionally, spiritually. So, Robin, good to see you, sir.
Yes, sir, Neil. I am so excited to be here and our listeners that are listening in.
Okay,
Thanks for joining us.
so you say that you're excited. Let's just go ahead and get into this thing with the timing of this. This is not something that just happened. We just made a decision yesterday, and today we're recording this. So let's talk about the timing. It took some time.
Yes, it certainly did. And, it's not something that just we decided that we were going to do this also. It kind of just happened as you and I met together on a regular basis, and we started sharing ideas with each other and encouraging each other. And we both have a passion for serving others in this regard, in terms of the development and growth, starting with ourselves and then all those that we are in touch with in our sphere of influence, if you will. And in my perspective, as we started getting together like that, there were times where, and I remember you were encouraging me, hey, you know what? We should record these because maybe there are others that can benefit from some of the thoughts that we're sharing. And that's kind of how it started. I would love to hear your perspective too.
No, so for me, what I think about why we're here and the timing of this is because we were having our regular meetings, our mastermind meetings, and then with us having the same philosophy on personal growth, development, making sure that as a man, a leader, a husband, father, friend, that we're always improving, being everything we could be. But what I remember about the conversation is different from what you do, right? So you're thinking about the positive side. And I remember you saying, but Neal, I know you have a lot on your plate, right? So even in your desire to serve
Yes.
others and for us to share with others, you were still thinking, but Neal, you have a lot on your plate. And so when you said that, I was thinking about Darren Hardy, who says that we're productive, that we're not busy. And so I had to start weeding my life, removing some things out of my schedule, off of my calendar, so that I could focus on impact. And I know we're big on impact. And so even with the timing of it, with us being here today, that means that I've done what I needed to do to clear some things off of my calendar to make sure that I could be impactful, not only for us, because I am excited because I know that others, our audience, they're going to benefit from this, but I'm spoiled just to hang out with you. And I don't know how your wife feels about it, but my wife knows that every time I'm on a call with you, every time we hang out, she was like, yeah, I'm going to have to go find something to do for an hour or two. Right. And so we promise, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to be locked into it for an hour, but it is going to be powerful. So, Robin, here's what I want to do, sir. We know that we're here. We're talking about this big life. Let me just ask you, because what is the big life? What does it mean? Where did it originate?
Yeah, that's a great question, Neil. And by the way, I get a whole lot more, I think, as from our conversations. It's you just authored a book. I hope we get the opportunity to talk a little bit about that as we move forward. You're making strides, and you're such a big example to me of living these principles out. Because it's one thing to know them; it's a whole other thing to live them out. And so, yeah, I look forward to our time together with great excitement and anticipation, brother. And I've benefited tremendously. So, the big life, it's very interesting, Neil, and thank you for asking, first of all. But I think the big life really, it came to me as I looked at my own life. So there is an acronym for those of our listeners, and I'm sure we'll probably get the opportunity to share that at some point in here. But the big life, the B.I.G, L.I.F.E, actually represents, each letter represents a thought, a truth, a principle, if you will, that when I look back at my life, it gives a picture of where I've been and where I've come to. And it's kind of funny. It just evolved. I didn't go out looking for it, but through the process of growth and through the process of reflection and considering my life and where I've been, and I think it's come down to three things: self-discovery, self-development, and then giving myself away. So servanthood. And and so as I've looked at that, this acronym just kind of came to me. And I realize now, Neal, that it's an acronym. Like like here we're creating this podcast around this, where these are principles that I have learned, that I continue to learn, and it forms a framework for what I believe we can dive into, apply, and live into our potential. And that's kind of the idea of the big life.
Good stuff. So here's what we're going to do, because I know the audience, they're going to say, if this guy mentions the principles or the acronym one more time and doesn't give it to us, we're going to riot, right? So I'm going to go ahead and give you all what the acronym Big Life is, and then we're going to walk through some of these. So first, the B, believe in yourself and your amazing capabilities. I, invest in yourself to improve yourself. G, give yourself away. And then with life, we have let love be your guide. I is going to be intentional or intentionality. F, follow the formula for success. And then E, evidence by transformation. And so as we talk about this, this is exciting. And so in the time that we're in, Robin, when I think about the big life, and you've continued or you repeated something and you continue to repeat them in the time that we're together, just having regular, normal conversation, is principles and truths. And
Yeah.
in 2024, what I have not heard you say is a feeling, an emotion, a fad, just a flash in the pan. You're saying principles and truths. So why is it so important for principles and truths to be the foundation of a big life? Why can't we try to build a big life when, instead of believe in yourself, where B could be belittle others, right? Why is it so? Why are those foundational principles and truths so important for creating a big life?
Wow, that's such a good question. I have to stop and think about it. But in other words, the point is that I firmly believe that these are universal. So regardless of what our listeners do or what they aspire to, these are fundamental principles that need to be applied in order to live into your potential, to increase your performance, to do better, to live out your purpose, to make your lives count, to make a difference. And so there are principles that you and I, so I think, Neal, I would love for you to chime in on this, but you and I have studied these truths and these principles. So in other words, there are truths and principles that are true, that if they're followed, actually create success and significance. And so the big thing really is, are we applying them? But these really are true. These are truths that I can share with my brother, right? My brother who might be struggling and wanting to get ahead in life, but feel sometimes that he's stuck or that things aren't happening his way. These are principles, guiding lights, if you will, that I can share with him, that if he will, and that's what's happened for me. And so in addition to studying it and learning from other successful people and from all different walks of life, it's what's happened in my own life and is happening. I don't want to sound like I've arrived. I'm a whole lot better than I was a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years ago when I started into this process. But there's still a lot of room for growth in my regard. But I'd love to hear your thought on that same question.
So for me, I just believe in looking at what success has done and the clues that they've left. Because while I think I'm smart, I believe that my genius lies in not creating, right? Learning from and then improving upon, right? And so when we see that there are principles that I can remove the thought process, I can remove the uncertainty. Now, is there going to be doubt, uncertainty along the way? Yes. But for instance, we know that the law of gravity, the principle of gravity says that if you drop something off of a building, that is going to go down. I don't have to be worried and say, well, if I drop this, is it going to go up or is it going to go sideways? And so that's what I love about these principles and these truths, that, as you said, it's applicable to everyone. And here's what excites me: it's not just about business or life or health. These principles are 360, right? Do I believe in myself to do what I need to financially or relationally or spiritually or health wise? And so that's what I absolutely love. But you mentioned something, and this is where I love that we have conversations, and I believe that our audience is going to benefit. So you've mentioned, well, I'm better alone now than when I started, a year, 5 years, and then you said like 30 years, right? And so here's what you said. You said, well, we study them, but we now have to apply them. What about those who don't know where to start? So there was a day one for Robin Lewis. There was a day one for Neal Oates when we said, okay, something better has to be out there. Where do I start looking? Because what I don't want you and I to do is to think that everyone is ready and already has all the tools for the big life and
Yeah.
haven't learned. So you mentioned studying first. So,
Yeah.
where did you start your big life journey and the transformation? And was it just instantly, and then all of a sudden you had euphoria?
Yeah. It was not clearly instantly, and it wasn't euphoria. But my recollection is, as a teenager, I actually found a book that my dad had. It's a classic. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I started reading that book and recognized that there were some things that I could do to help to better myself, and improve relationships that I had. And so I got my first little taste of self development through that book. So it was reading. So I would say one of the things that I would encourage our listeners to do, and I know you are a reader, right? Just like myself, and it's reading. I think reading is a big part of that. But
So,
Neal, I
so
want to.
hold on, Robin. I want to ask you: were you always a reader? Did you just see a book laying around from your dad, or where did that come from? Because mine came from my mom and my dad. Right, my mom and my dad, like summer break, everyone else is excited. Spring break, all the other kids are excited. I'm like, man, I have to do book reports on holiday. Come on, mama. But now I realize that that was vitally important to this thing here. Have you always been a reader, or did that evolve later? And if so, where did it come from?
That's a great question. It evolved. When I read that book, I wouldn't even have considered myself a reader. I kind of just fell into it, if you know what I mean. But then it impacted me in such a way that I recognized that this was a great benefit to me. And but to answer your question, I recognize the benefit more looking back than I did at that time. All right. So I wasn't necessarily a reader. Where that actually came from me, Neal, is in well, in 1986, I joined the Amway business.
Now
Amway is
hold on, Robin. 1986, just so people can have a context of you and I's relationship, because we look the same age. I just want to say 1986, I was 4 years old. And you're talking about joining a business while I'm 4 years old, sir.
Yes, sir. Hey, listen, man, and I love you. Thank you for allowing the old guy to be around. Um, but yes, I was introduced at that time. In fact, I know we have different people listening to us today, different faiths. I say this, folks, only to share from my vantage point. But in 1986, I'm going to share a little bit about my faith, if you will. But in 1986, I was at an Amway, my first Amway convention, and I made two major decisions there. One is to develop a more meaningful relationship with God. And then the other one was to invest into my personal growth. That's where I was introduced to reading books, and I joined the Book of the Month Club, where they were sending you recommended books on a monthly basis. I was attending seminars. I had seminars every month on a Saturday for like the whole day on Saturday, that I was that guy that was joining them. I was listening to tapes. Now, a lot of people won't know what tapes are, but it's like a podcast. But tapes were little things that you plugged into a machine, and it played the talks for you. Now we just plug on, let's push a button on our phones. But similarly, I was on the receiving 3 tapes a week. We call it the Tape of the Week program, where I was listening to people talk about success, and I was attending conferences 4 times a year, weekend long conferences. And all of this was around growth and development. And so that's where it really started for me. I was introduced. So I went to learn how to become successful. In fact, I was so shallow back then. It was more about how to become rich, right? How to make money.
You didn't care. You didn't care nothing about success. So back
You know what I
then,
mean?
so money was success, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And
Now, hold
that's,
on, Robin. You mentioned that you were shallow. Now, here's what I would say. It takes an aware individual to look back and be like, boy, I tell you what, my motives were so wrong, right? And we can look back and laugh at it now, but then that does allow you and I to look at others who might not be where we are on the journey and understand that that used to be us, right?
yes.
That we are not that far removed from, like, I mean, time, yes, but we're not that far removed from someone just getting started, and all they've seen portrayed as success is the income, is going to be the financial piece of it, right?
It's such a good point, Neil. I want to just touch on it for a little bit, because here's the reality. I talked about it earlier on, that I'm still have room for growth. I'm still growing. So using your example, I still have to keep my motives in check. I just finished reading a book, A High Road Leadership by John Maxwell. And one of the chapters that he talks in there is talking about putting people above our own agenda. And that's a motive question. And it challenges me to recognize that I still have room to grow in terms of my motive. Is it about Robin and what I am trying to achieve and what my agenda is? Or is it about others? So the point in me pausing for a moment is just to share with our listeners that it's not that we ever arrive in that regard. So yes, I've come a long way from what I saw success as, 40 years ago, but I'm still learning and growing and tweaking and getting better in that regard.
So Robin, here's what I want to just mention. I know that we talk about the big life, with B
Yeah.
being believe in yourself, I invest in yourself. But what if I don't believe in myself enough to invest? Right. And so this is where we know that we have the acronym, but at some point you might have to invest in yourself so that you can believe in yourself. And so, but I do believe that those two are absolutely required before someone can give themselves away. So, how do you decide to invest? How do we decide to invest in ourselves? Because I know at some point in my life, I don't look at it as an investment. I look at it as a cost. I say I can't afford to buy the book, right? Not because I don't have the money, but because that means I have to read the book. I can't afford to spend the time at the seminar, because then I can't catch up on my Netflix, or I can't go outside and play golf or do pickleball. So, what is it for maybe not only you, but maybe someone starting out to say, hey, there is a requirement for me to invest in myself, even if it is just that study time, like you started talking about earlier?
It's a great, great question. And I do believe, like you just said, that both are needed. Neil, here's the reality. And folks listening to us, here's the reality. It really has been my life. I haven't, I didn't start out believing in myself. And so, as for me, how it happened, Neil, is I had a desire. So, what I would say to people is, if you have a desire, believe in that desire. If you have a desire, if you want to make a difference, if you want your life to count, if you feel like there's more to life, just follow that. And so as I followed that and I started investing in myself, so that's the investing in myself is in my personal growth and development. And there's some areas that we will at some point, folks, boil down for you. You know, we believe that there are 6 areas that if you invest in yourself, invest in your growth in those areas, that you will have what it takes to become successful. But so as I started doing that, a part of that was helping me to recognize my true worth and to
Mhm.
start to believe that I have something to bring that nobody else does. And the other thing that I would say, and this might sound self-serving, but here's where I come from. I'll say it first, and then I'll tell you where I come from. Hang around this podcast a little bit more. The reason that I say that is because what happened for me, Neal, is that people believed in me. And so what I'm saying to our folks listening is that we believe in you. That's the reason why we're doing this, is because we believe in you, that you have a potential, first of all, that is unlimited. But second of all, that you have value to bring that nobody else can.
Mhm.
Nobody else can, because there's only one you. And if we don't get you, the world misses out. So, what I would say when I say that, it's not self serving, it's to say to you, to be around people. That's what happened for me, Neal. I was around people who believed in me more than I believed in myself. And as I started getting around them, it helped me. And it wasn't an overnight process, it helped me to grow in that regard.
And so that reminds me of, the idea. People see me now, they see you now, and they think that we've arrived, right? And not that we're huge on by any measure, but they see us walk with this confidence. But I specifically remember at certain points through my life and even today where I have to glean or borrow someone's confidence and their belief in me when I don't believe in myself. And that's someone who is a student of success and growth and knowing the laws and the principles and the formulas. But like yesterday, I had to look at my wife and say, baby, tell me that I'm okay. Tell me that I'm enough. And she's like, what? Oh, absolutely. You are enough. And I know that if you're starting this journey, you're going to say, well, you don't know who I am. You don't know the mistakes I've made, the poor decisions that I have made. You don't know where I've had to start. And you are absolutely right. We might not know personally, but the beauty of this thing called life and with technology, that we can find someone, and not to take away or to minimize your situation, your challenges, but we can find someone who started worse than you, who's doing better, right? And not in comparison, but for hope and inspiration and to motivate us to move forward. So I want to put you on the spot as we get ready to close this episode, Robin. Who, because you talked about you had to borrow confidence, you had to get around people, you had to come in and say, all right, I don't fully believe in Robin Lewis, but let me get around some of these other confident people. And then maybe just your proximity to them, they said, hey, this kid just keeps showing up, he's just here all of the time. We see these minor steps that end up being strides. Who in your life believed in Robin Lewis when Robin Lewis did not believe in himself?
Wow. So, here's the reality is when I look at a question like that, there's so many thin lines. I can talk about the guy when I left college. I went to a community college, and I just wasn't focused at the time. I didn't have a focus, and so I wasn't interested in class, and I ended up playing pool in the cafeteria more than I was in the classroom. And I left college to go do a sales job. I was literally doing door to door sales, and there was a sales manager who believed in me, and I was young and naive enough to receive that and to listen to what he was suggesting that I do. And I went on that job, and that work and applied some of the things that he was suggesting that I do, and I saw that they were working, and that changed my life. And while there, I called on an insurance company, and there was a lady there from Cuba. Her name was Cookie, and she had lived in Jamaica, which is where I'm from. She had lived there for about 7 or 8 years, and she took a liking to me. The long story short is I left what I was doing to start in the insurance business, and Cookie believed in me, and Cookie became a mentor to me, and she helped me to become the rookie agent of the year and to continue on and have a very successful career in the insurance business. And I can tell you about Jim Pollard, Jim and Janetta Pollard, who was a client of mine. I actually, in the insurance business, we got a lead that Jim had asked for more information. I called on Jim, and Jim became a client. And Jim believed in me enough to invite me to join the Amway business. And the Amway business changed my life, as I mentioned to you earlier. So when I think about it, I can really look back at my life. I can trace so many others, and I can go on. I'm obviously just touching the some of the names that come to my mind right now. My biggest encourager has been my dad. My dad is 91, going to be 92 here very shortly, and he never misses an opportunity to encourage me. I've been blessed like that. I know
Yeah.
as we talk now, there are people that are listening to us that might not have a dad in your life, or maybe the dad wasn't there for you. And I don't mean to bring up that to you to make me sound any different than you, right? Because I believe that if we don't have an actual dad in our life, we have people that can be dads in our lives, right? But for me personally, my dad has been the biggest encourager in my life. And I could go on. You and I share a mentor who has been very impactful. If I were to say who's been the most impactful, not just because of what he has done or said or whatever program or book he has written, which all of that has helped me, and I'm a part of you and I are a part of his certified coaches and trainers and speakers, and I'm talking about the John Maxwell, the number one leadership guru in the world. But he's also allowed me to connect with others. Like I've learned of other thought leaders and so on through him and through his organization. And I would say that being around John Maxwell organization, John Maxwell team, Maxwell leadership has been the most impactful for me.
Good stuff. So my first ones and my longest standing supporters and lenders of encouragement have been my mom and dad. I'm telling you, so I was like you, blessed beyond reason to grow up in a family where my mom and dad, they encouraged me to try any and everything that I wanted. And then once I tried it, they made sure that I at least completed that season so I didn't quit and I had that experience. But then professionally, as you mentioned, there were individuals who even today, I look at where I am as a speaker, as a coach, as an instructor, and I can specifically say Teresa King Kenny, Deborah Bozo Valador, Letty Oliver, right? And I'm looking at Ashley Osteen, and I look around and I'm like, man, how did I get here? Because coming from where we came from, we're going to get into that in the next episode, talking about maybe not starting with the silver spoon, right? Is it possible to have a big life when you start from humble beginnings? And if so, what are some of the steps in this? But for me, I know I look back, and while I do not believe that I deserved the favor, we know that it is unmerited favor, grace, mercy. I am so thankful that I had people who were willing to say, I think you can. I think you can. So we think of the little engine that could when he says, I think I can, I think I can. I didn't even think I could. Someone else was behind me saying, I think you can. And then I look up and see where we are today. And look where we are because we're together because someone says, hey, I think you two would be a good match. And he put us together. Dan Longman, we will forever be in your debt, sir. Threw us together at the networking event. And it has been nothing but beautiful history since then.
That's so rich, and that could be a topic just in and of itself. Thank you for sharing. I do want to say one thing, sir. My mother passed away about 6 years ago, coming up on 7 years ago. But I would be remiss without mentioning her. In fact, one of the things that she's done for me as a result of her belief in me is she's challenged me. And she continued to challenge me to grow, to get better, to do better. And her love, it's a mother's love that she has shared with me, unconditional. And she was a tremendous example to me as well, which I hope to be able to share with our listeners at some point in time, as she struggled with cancer. And in 6 months lost her life. And through that process, she's left a tremendous legacy for her kids.
Absolutely. So that's something that we have in common. My dad passed 15 years ago. And so we will be having conversation about the impact our parents had, what we've learned after their passing, how we're continuing to be loved on by our surviving parental figures, and what we hope to do for them and because of them as we go forward. But ladies and gentlemen, Robin and I, we want to just say thank you for hanging out with us for this time. We know that you could have been anywhere, and your decision to hang out with us throughout this podcast shows that you are committed to living a big life. So we want to remind you, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment. We are reading every comment. We're going to be responding, and we cannot wait to see you live the big life. Thank you all.
Right on.